Ladies and gentlemen, federal employees, RMDs, or required minimum distributions, is the time bomb of retirement. It's the sort of thing that you don't even have to think about or pay attention to until, boom, it's too late and you are forced to take money out of retirement accounts at a rate that you may not even want to come close to doing, but you have to, and you're forced to pay the taxes accordingly. Today we're going to talk about what RMDs are, how they're going to impact you if you do nothing, and the things you can do to set yourself up for success. So, first and foremost, what the heck are RMDs? Well, if you didn't know, at certain ages in your retirement, you're going to be required to pull money out from any pre-taxed retirement account. So that's traditional TSP, traditional 401ks, traditional IRAs, anything that is pre-tax. At a certain age, the government says, look, you've had your fun of tax-deferred growth. It's over. You got to start pulling that money out at a rate that most people simply don't want to. Now, when do RMDs start? Well, it's based on your birthday, and you can see here on this chart, if you're born 1960 or later, it's age 75. If you're born between 1951 and 1959, 73, etc. You can see, but for most people watching, it's either going to be 73 or 75. Otherwise, you probably have already started your RMDs. Now that you know when it's going to start, let's say it starts at 75. How much do they require to come out? Well, there's some great RMD calculators you could find online. Long story short, it depends on your age and life expectancy, a number of things. However, it normally starts around 5%, let's say if you're starting at 75, and it goes up from there. So maybe the next year is 6%, etc. It goes up over time. So it doesn't take long until you're having to take huge swaths of your account out every year and paying taxes accordingly. Let me give an example. This example I'm about to show you is a very common thing. Let's say this is your retirement income. Let's say you retire at 62, and here's, of course, 75 when RMDs would start. Let's say you've got your pension for the rest of your life. You got your Social Security for the rest of life. Maybe you're taking the 4% rule out of TSP. You're taking some withdrawals. So this is your normal income level. Let's say this is normal tax brackets, right? Whether this is 10, 12, 22, 24, etc., 32. And let's say you've got a healthy TSP. And actually, one side note, the more investments you have that are pre-tax, the better you've saved, the more this is a problem. If someone doesn't really have much saved at all, RMDs probably won't be that big of a deal, right? Because they don't have a lot of money that's going to be subject to RMDs. So really, it's kind of interesting that the people that get the worst situations because of this are those that have saved really well. They've got tons saved, and they just don't realize the huge amounts that are going to be required to come out later. So let me give an example. Let's say at 75. Let's say your money keeps growing, right? You are taking withdrawals, but it's still growing. Let's say you got a couple $1 million. You have a couple $1 million in the TSP or IRAs, wherever. Well, you're going to be required to pull probably $100,000 or so year one out of those investments. So maybe your income kind of pops up. You got to pull an extra $100,000 out of your investments. Boom. And it goes up over time. This sort of situation happens. Now, it doesn't happen to everybody. Again, if you don't have big investments, it's not going to be as big of a deal. But this can happen all the time where you're used to being in low tax brackets and then boom, RMDs hit and you're in a much higher one. Maybe you're up in the 24 or 32% bracket at that point. You were down in the 12 before for the good first half of your retirement, and then everything changed. And once your RMDs start, it's over. It's too late, right? Now, here's a couple things. Now they understand the problem. Now you understand what RMDs are and the problems they can cause. Let me talk you through some of the solutions. What can we do? Number one, you can try to get some money over to Roth over time. And this can be this can make a big difference. Let me show you how. First and foremost, Roth accounts, so Roth TSP, Roth IRAs, they are not subject to RMDs. They're just not. So any money you have in Roth, you can actually let continue to grow. You don't have to take any withdrawals out over time. It can just grow for however long you like. And if you pass it on to kids, it's tax-free for them as well, which again, fantastic. We like tax-free. What if you said this? You said, look, right now I'm in the 12% bracket. I've got a little bit of room between the 12% bracket and the next bracket, let's say 22% bracket. You can say, look, I know when I hit 75, my tax rate's going to skyrocket because of RMDs. What if I started moving money over to Roth now? What if instead of just waiting and they're forcing me to take it all out of my pre-tax accounts, what if I start moving over to Roth now and I fill up this tax bracket? So you're not doing a ton every year, but you're slowly, every year, you just fill this bracket up with Roth conversions, okay? You're getting money over to Roth. So which means you're depleting down the traditional side. And yes, you're paying a little extra in taxes now, but overall, you will pay generally a lot less in taxes over the course of your lifetime because you deplete the skyrocket effect that RMDs have if you get as much as you reasonably can over to the Roth. Okay, now, of course, you want to keep an eye on what your tax bracket is. You don't want to do too much now. That's not wise either. But getting some money over to Roth can make a big, big difference. Now, let's talk about QCDs. If you haven't heard about QCDs, these are another great strategy to reduce the impact of RMDs over time. So QCD stands for Qualified Charitable Distribution. Basically, it is if you take a piece of your RMD. So let's say they require you to pull out, I don't know, $80,000 out of your investments and send a piece of it to the IRS, right? They say, look, you have to take out $80,000 for RMD. If you take a piece of or all of this $80,000 and you send it over to a charity of your choice, whether the Red Cross, your local church, or any legitimate charity, if you send it over to a charity, then this $80,000 or whatever you send over their way completely disappears. It's not included in your taxable income at all. None. It doesn't impact your Medicare premiums. It doesn't impact your tax bracket. It just disappears. So this strategy can be fantastic in supporting the charities that you want to support anyway while reducing your tax burden. And QCDs are by far the most tax-efficient way to give to charity. It's a great way to give to charity. But again, if you're not charitably inclined, that may not make sense for you. So this video, again, showed you what RMDs are, when they're going to start, and the potential problems, the time bomb of, boom, popping you up into really high tax brackets, and some of the things you can do to help avoid and be prepared for those down the road. So I hope that is helpful, and I'll see you guys in the next video.